Well, I had the amazing opportunity to work on a huge vegetable farm in Manitoba many years ago in university, and brilliant summer, but definitely it made me start thinking about this whole system of food production and what we've got going. And a few things that really stuck out during that experience, first of all, was the labor force. So on that particular farm there was 60 Mexican migrant laborers, and I know since then that's more than doubled on that particular farm. So just an enormous reliance on these Mexican workers. And so even if I'm thinking that I'm buying local produce produced in Canada, or how local is it if we're relying so heavily on imported labor? How sustainable is it if we're bringing in these external workers? And then the other part of the labor force, in addition to the Mexicans, was a group of Aboriginal men from a northern community in Manitoba, and then busloads of new immigrants, just freshly arriving in Canada, who are bussed into the farm every day to do this farm work. And so, I mean, again, just thinking, like, what does that demonstrate about the value we put on food production if the work is so underpaid and difficult that only really the most vulnerable populations are willing to do it. And so again, what does that mean in terms of the overall sustainability and resilience of those systems? So start thinking along those lines a wee bit after being exposed. And then the other thing that really struck me about that farm is, as fantastic a place as it was, that the whole idea of scale. So huge farm, and definitely there's an economies of scale that you gain from having that size of operation, and many efficiencies that you gain. But with that economies of scale, I think it then has an increasing tolerance for waste in certain areas, in other areas. So one example that always amazed me was around the perimeter of each field was just a huge swath of beautiful black dirt that was never ever planted, and it had to they had to keep that area uncultivated so that they would have enough room to turn around their equipment when they got to each row and went back and forth and back and forth. And so they had a kind of a custom-made harvesting machine that was over 75 feet long, and so this swath of dirt had to accommodate this massive moving of this machine. And I just always wondered, how many people could that land that isn't cultivated actually feed? And then if you compare it to, my own little backyard or any sort of permaculture installation where every little scrap of land is productive or is utilized or is growing something or somehow contributing to the overall system. That was one example. The other example that struck me as well was just, after we harvest, what's left over in the field. So you pick everything and there's still a whole lot of vegetables left in the field just because they're not grade A vegetables. They're not good enough for supermarket standards. And so at that level of cultivation or harvesting, there's a significant loss or waste. And then after packaging it and transporting it, there's another series of losses there at the supermarket itself or the distributors. There's losses, and so at each step there's loss or waste essentially. And then so the more you can, I think the bigger the scale, the bigger the distances, the more steps there are in between, and the more losses there could be. And so looking at my own little humble backyard, you cut down all those steps and you can really cut out some of those losses at each of those steps. So in my own yard, it goes from the patch to the fridge, and there's just not that same level of loss. And I think that, if I know that I've been, planting and watering and weeding and everything all summer, I'm going to eat every last potato that comes out of there, regardless of how ugly or twisted or spotty it is. So great experience that just gave me a lot of food for thought in terms of how our food production system works and how potentially it could work.